everyone present here today and also to the ones who have joined us virtually to Bidisha's pilgrimage, the launch of two exceptional books authored by the Global Educator Rupa Chakravarti, Pilgrimage, Bidisha and Bureaucracy. As a curator, I am privileged to introduce to you a learned and a celebrated alchemist who has touched numerous chords of emotions with her writings and also has been featured on Sam Obucha's website, the biggest distributor in Europe. Rupadi, congratulations for the same. And now may I request you to come on stage and share some personal words with the audience present here.
Vayjayanti, thank you for those kind words. I hope I live up to your expectations. I really am just Rupadi, and I think ordinary describes me best. In the multifarious roles that I have played as a woman, the child, the daughter, the mother, the wife, the teacher, and in my old age, dabbling with words, I don't think the trajectory is anything exceptional. It is something that we can all do. However, the crux of the matter lies in what Vayjayanti so eloquently put on your own terms. I have no gender bias, I have no fights with the superiority of sexes. I know that in my mind I am an equal amongst equals. I think that is the sum of my parts. Nothing special, nothing extraordinary, but the ability to be Rupadi. Thank you very much. I warmly welcome everybody this evening, dignitaries, Jawhar in particular for taking the time out. I am absolutely honored that you will be here today to unveil my attempts with words. They are revealing books, but I reiterate, it is the trajectory of every woman, because I am every woman. Thank you so much.
Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvighnam Kurme Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvighnam Kurme Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Vakratunda Mahakaya.
Thank you. I'm absolutely delighted to be present here, especially because it's Rupa's work. She has somebody called Sarvjit also. What is that? Where's Sarvjit? Hey, Shorbo! Come in. Come in. Now, I've heard of self-effacing husbands like me. He's an introvert like me, so come, Vishu. Now, Vishu. Why don't you come and sit? No, but that you use, when you sit there, you go back 40 years. Anyway, so it's an absolute delight to be present here. And I have gone through Rupa's work. One doesn't have much of a choice because she's very active on her communication spree. And from small outpourings of emotion to longer pieces. Just a few words about both these books. The first book, Pilgrimage, is a little misleading in the sense that you feel like folding your palms together, and it's got nothing to do with that. It's an outpouring of emotions. Rupa is very Bengali. Very Bengali. In other words, the emotions come first and intellect follows thereafter. But at a reasonably good speed. So she goes in for this thing. The first book, she has made it into 6 sections. Again, you can see the shadow of an autobiography in them, from vows to Krishna Kodi and the other sections. Basically, she picks up on the themes of Rabindranath Tagore, the poems, and transcreates them. The problem with translation and translations, which you know, many others would also be aware, is that the language becomes not a facilitator, but something of a blockade. Because the languages are not the exact translation of words. They need to convey the feelings. The words themselves, when translated, do not convey. So she has taken the liberty to convey the feelings that go with Tagore and the different moods. Her pick is very good, and she has taken, and there are always this yearning for self-expression also that one can see through it. The subtle messaging. Shakunit is a very subtle person, so he needs subtle messaging. My wife knows that I am a little more expressive, so she knows how to deal with expressive people, which is just be more expressive. And this one is her first book, but she has been writing on and off for the last few years. The next one moves on to Bidisha and bureaucracy. Again, I really can't understand her titles, because the moment she said bureaucracy, I woke up. I was a bureaucrat once again. I have the unique honor of being in 2 troublesome professions. People do only one. One profession where you can abuse and say he was a policeman, he was a bureaucrat. I have 2 now. So the second one is equally bad. She claims it is not autobiographical, but one can see the autobiographical element that comes through. So they relate to her personal experience. The difference with other books by ambassadors' wives, there have been quite a few, is that they stress on many other aspects. And here you see, Rupa doesn't go around saying what Chakravarti was doing there, what Chakravarti was doing there, but concentrate on the woman, the mother, the wife, as I love to put her, the bundle of emotions and expressions. She goes around. She doesn't focus or get fixated on something like child rearing or something. It's always there in the back. But she goes on as an observer. This is an ideal handbook for somebody who would like to join the foreign service. Either way, either directly by exam, qualifying the exam, which is not, which is very much possible, or as a spouse, male or otherwise, female. We have male spouses also, lots of them. So this one is a journey of how it all began, and since they married a bit too early, she has gone through the probation part and everything. You know, there are lots of places where you remind us, because Sharbu was just a few, I think 3-4 years after me. When we entered, the pay scale of the IAS was 400 rupees. Yeah, 400 rupees. 400 rupees. So my would-be wives, would-be parents, in-law were told that jolly pilch and make 400 rupees was the salary. When he came in, it was 700 rupees. 700 rupees. So you understand the great jump. 400, 700. And then the expectations were very high also. The whole horde of your relations would turn up and things like that. We knew how to make ends meet. So there are touches of that, but she doesn't get fixated on any point. So she touches on that. I was reminded of how these things happened, but we were pretty okay with 400 and 700.
Exactly.
And one of the reasons why I never opted for the other profession, the one on teaching, which was deep within me, was that teachers would get about 120 rupees those days, temporary ones. So I was way behind. It was only in the later pay commission that they came and equaled. So life has its own nuances, own thrills, own problems. She has not put up any problem as such or not pursued any story, but it's a general narration that comes up from an arranged marriage, which she welcomes without getting into that fretting thing. I don't want to marry somebody I don't know and all that. So she starts with that and moves on with the flow, including a probationer's life. That's the interesting part. A probationer's life is a difficult one. And she goes through, your probationer in, or was it your first posting in Spain?
That was our first posting.
First posting, what we call the language one.
Language training.
Language training. We all tend to objectify it. As I say in the services, we are all scaled and boxed and numbered. The police is worse. They are shouldered. They all look at the shoulder first and then decide whether to salute. So it's always like that. There are subtle hints about people who are helpful, and every service, every profession has its own quota of backstabbers. So we have to go through life with all its work. In other words, it's a very good read, very personal read, and she comes out with a flourish. Simple, straight, and not too long. So I'll follow her principle and not keep this speech too long. Congratulations, Rupa. Congratulations, Shorbo, for being there. That's all. And the two daughters. He has two intensely over-talented daughters. Both of them are highly over-talented. I've seen one of them, I have seen photos of the other, and they have been a source of joy to them also. Thank you very much, all of you.
For that, may I request Rita, Bhimani, Ramanjit, Kaur, Sujoy, Prasaad, Chatterjee to join us on stage to do the honors for the book unveiling along with Mr. Jawhar Sircar. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Do we take the Yes, we do. Can we just find
Yes,
the
of
photos
course,
without
Hello, I'm Shashi Tharoor and I'm delighted to send these words of good wishes to Rupa Chakravarti on the publication of her two books written during the COVID lockdown. I had seen one of them, her debut book of poems, Pilgrimage, in which Rupa Chakravarti writes about the development of the girl child, so often shrouded in stifling social pressures that prevent her from becoming the person she hopes to be. Rupa Chakravarti is a very interesting writer, shaped by her experiences as the spouse of an Indian Foreign Service officer. Her words flow gently on the page, but they reveal the urgent passions that lie behind them. I congratulate Rupa Chakravarti on her creative debut during the COVID lockdown period. I'm very pleased that my friend Jawhar Sircar, my new colleague in Parliament, will be releasing the book on the 24th of October, and I wish Rupa not only the successful release of both her books, but also all the best in the rest of her writing career to come. Thank you very much. Good luck, Rupa. Jai Hind.
Very much, Rupa, for inviting me to say a few words on the event of your new book coming out. I'm very delighted to do that. I'm sorry I can't be there personally, but I hope you'll accept this short comment from me. You're well known as a singer and a musician and a poet and a writer, and now you've branched off into a fictionalized narrative of the wife of a diplomat in the Foreign Service, the Service of India. Now, there have been other versions of a diplomat's wife in India, but to my knowledge, my recollection, I don't think they've been in the form of a book, but as maybe compilations or essays, and I seem to have read some of them in the past. But yours is new because it's fictionalized, though I noticed that it follows your husband's career very closely. And certainly I think it's right to give prominence to the wives of diplomats, because they are really the unsung heroes. They work in many cases much harder than their husbands, and their circle of friends tends to be much bigger than their husbands as well, and extremely valuable to Indian interests. Maybe what you haven't mentioned are the hardships of packing up and moving from one place to another every few years, the dislocation it proves to family life, the difficulties in organizing decent education for your children with changes of schools the whole time, or placing them in boarding, which not everybody likes, and perhaps also the problems of coming to places where you don't know the language, and there are places, of course, where the medical facilities are really dreadful. So, I mean, these are some of the difficulties that our wives have to deal with, and I think they're enormously courageous in dealing with all that. But in any case, congratulations to you on having written this book, and I hope it does very well. I hope people will learn and maybe sympathize with the fortunes of the wives who have worked with their husbands in the service of India abroad. And I hope maybe this is one of other books that you might write.
Good evening. Although I am not with all of you in person today, my thoughts are very much there. My warmest congratulations to Rupa Chakravarti on the publication of this wonderful memoir of a sensitive, seeing, constantly evolving woman who embraces life with such verve and such passion, exuding like the perfumes she wears, a fragrance that bridges boundaries in a narrative of universal meaning. Reading this book, the chapters and what they portrayed, spoke to me with an evanescence, like a canvas by one of the old masters, joyous and yet reflective, a blend of sunshine and shadow, personalities of every type, stretched across in a caravan that refuses to end, except with the promise of more to come. Journeys interspersed with shards of memory, rejoined together like a broken Japanese vase that is even more resplendent and precious in its reborn form because of the powers of recall and sensitiveness which our author possesses in such infinite and impressive measure. This is a pilgrim's progress through a life in diplomacy, a map plotted with myriad destinations, a mindscape full of personalities, some of whom are titanic, while the others less than middling. A portrait of life lived in an arena defined by the official circuit and its accompaniments, but leavened by the love and courage of family, and solid values learnt and never abandoned. I have read Bidisha and Bureaucracy with great pleasure, buoyed not only by the narrative, but by the eloquence of its author, by the power of her writing style, which is so effective and evocative. I congratulate Rupa on this signal achievement. And felicitations are also due to Sarvajit, her husband, for the strength, the sustenance, and the support he has always provided in the encouragement and fostering of Rupa's creativity and talent. Rupa, more strength to you and to the power of your pen, to your desire to impart learning in the journey of life, to separate chaff from grain and the flecks of gold from the grains of dross, and always never losing the urge to seek meaning, to quest for the unknown, and to believe in the powers of rainbows at the end of every storm. Congratulations, dear friend. Be healthy, happy, and blessed. Thank you so much.
Women in the society have to step up from their regular roles as homemakers, wives, and mothers to shoulder the responsibility of sculpting the concept of a new era. Amidst the conflict between the traditional and the modern, Rupa Chakravarti, in her debut book of poems, The Pilgrimage, has evoked many such urgent but sensitive, profound but subtle developments of a girl child into a world of aspirations and desires. And it's my honor today to be in a rendezvous with the very effervescent Rupa Chakravarti on her debut book, The Pilgrimage. And I hope you all enjoyed the discussion. Thank you. How are you feeling?
Very moved by Ambassador.
Yes.
Extremely moved by Ambassador Rao's powerful, sensitive, but most significantly truthful words. This is not stemming from the fact that dignitaries carry a label. This comes from deep within. Respect is something that cannot be simulated. It stems from the gut. I humbly thank Honourable Member of Parliament, Jawhar Sircar, Honourable Minister, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, for his very eloquent clip, Foreign Secretary Chris Vasan for actually focusing on the fact that I think the spouse is the unsung hero. But I chose with discretion because I love my mind the best. So for me, the novel Dove is a land of learning, and I tried to impart that to my children. But Foreign Secretary Nirmala Rao, I think, has read my soul, and it is difficult to transcend her eloquence.
That's so beautiful, Rupali. And to begin my discussion on the pilgrimage, and as I recall you writing there, Ardhangini of house and folds and vision blurred. Having read this particular thought there, and I think which totally transcends the fact that you have been traveling and your feet has been on foreign soil, and which has actually led you to the foothills of the pilgrimage, your personal journey. So when you write, do you write as a feminist, or do you write as an anti-patriarchal individual?
Thank you for that very insightful question, but I think, I said it in my opening address. I am truly happy to be just Rupa Chakravarti, the ordinary woman. I have no gender bias. I have no sense of inequality. I stand tall amongst the tallest. The only thing that can cower me is brute force, but that is not necessarily from the male alone. The woman can also do the same. But if it is a matter of minds, then in this, yes, I will have to use the word vast range of acquaintances, experiences, starting from the gardeners to the chauffeurs, to the prime ministers, to the presidents, to the kings, the queens. I have never felt trepidation. And that, I think, was the biggest gift of my upbringing. The foothills have always been a comfortable place. I know I have to take the club.
You know you have to take the club, and you indeed did make the right choices. And as I said in my earlier introduction, that you are a woman who has been living and has lived on her own terms, which brings me, when you mention, I call her Krishna Kali. And I too believe, and everyone would, that dark is beautiful and dark is powerful and dark is Krishna Kali, as mentioned by Rupadi. And you have very aesthetically spoken about the complexity of the skin tones. And you say it's open to judgments, and indeed we know it's open to judgments. And you have mentioned that too in the pilgrimage. So can you elaborate on what were your thoughts on mentioning Krishna Kali?
Another very insightful question, Vayjayanti, thank you. Apartheid begins at home. I was considered a reasonably beautiful girl, but there was always this interjection, but you have to understand that I come from a stock of very progressive women, and it became a Pavlovian response. The condition reflects that people will say, oh, she looks like Suchitra Sen, or she looks like Rita, but little did I know that this was preparing me for the foreign turf, when I would be part of the observer mission post-apartheid in Namibia, and that I would meet the likes of Nelson Mandela and realize that my learning started as a little girl, and skin tones are a personal prejudice.
Very, very beautiful. And yet you mentioned about vows. You mentioned of the sacred flames and the ancient prayers. Vows exemplify as the epitome of love. And as love is the basis of all relationships, the foundation of marriage. The mother, the sister, the lover, the daughter, and she's like that one binding atom which creates that emotional balance in life. This woman, this her, how do you see her through the eyes of the pilgrimage?
This is perhaps the boldest question. I've been fortunate. I've been a daughter. I've been a wife, I've been a mother, I've been a friend, an uncle, an aunt, so on and so forth. But I will have to go back to a very truthful anecdote to share with you the fact that in my mind lives a polygamist as inheritor to Draupadi. Sharmajit and I were strolling down the streets of New York, and I saw this beautiful escort under a lamplight. And the eternal storyteller, I looked and I stopped, and I told Sharmajit, I said, you know, I'm her right now. And in my mind, if I can be a hooker, then I am that. But, as you said, it stemmed from love. We cannot coexist until we factor in the quotient of love. Rupali doesn't want to be the saint. Rupali couldn't care less if she is the sinner. But Rupali will tie every relationship with love. Therefore, in my mind, if I am Draupadi, then I dare say I challenge anybody to do it all and to do it boldly. Because love was an integral part of my upbringing.
Yes, and I remember the other day when I asked you, Rupali, that what is love? And you said love is Rupali, and Rupali is love. So I totally resonate with your feelings, what you just shared with us today. And there is so much I can go on and on to discuss about the pilgrimage, but I want to leave something to the audience to actually pick up the book and read. But moving towards the last question for today, I do have to ask you about the stigma. You know, the best stone cast, the revelation, the rebellion, yet rejoice. So women are the shadow of the relations that they are in, shadows of their husbands, of their heritage, and later on even under the shadow of the children. What do you want to communicate to all the women out there who are living under the shadow of the societal environment that they are in? How do they come out of it? How do they make the right choice?
Just simply be truthful. Poor little Bidisha had a broken engagement. She had witnessed stigma when she was not yet 20. The society then equated a broken engagement with a divorce. And it was cast in stone that little Bidisha would perhaps remain a wallflower. I think the preparation comes when the soil is tender, when it is culpable, when the waters of experience, wisdom, and knowledge nurture it and sculpt it to be able to become a source of acceptance. When you accept, you analyze, it is unconscionable to say, this is wrong. But if you are taught that very young, then no stigma is a stigma. It is a complete tribute to life, because it is the dark period of the soul where you test yourself, that walk through fire to know that I am the best part of myself. No shame, no slander, no slur, just the truth and to walk with your head held high. I've tried to bequeath that to my poets.
Indeed, a great upbringing there, everybody, and we are celebrating this rebellion and this rejoicing today, this book launch through two beautiful books that you've authored. And ladies and gentlemen, this book launch just does not stop here, because Rupadi has been invited to Orathon Art Gallery in Pondicherry by Sri Lalit Verma to have another book launch there in March 2022. So may I all request you to give her a round of applause for this lady. Thank you, Rupadi, for this lovely rendezvous on pilgrimage. I can be endless about it, but I want to leave a little bit of nostalgia for the audience to grab the copy and read through.
May I just say that I am blown away with your eloquence, your insight, and your apt queries. Pilgrimage is nothing until and unless you have the ability to question why we have the trajectory. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
To be intertwined with the pilgrimage and to be one with the conscience of the writer, we have book reading from the ace, interdisciplinary artist, and his speciality in spoken words and theatre, Mr. Sujoy Prasaad Chatterjee, along with internationally awarded and celebrated theatre director, artist, and vice president, Arts Leadership Council for Wiki, Ramanjit Kaur. May I request Ramanjit ma'am and Sujoy to please join me on stage for the book readings on the pilgrimage.
A round of applause, please.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege and honor to be reading from the first mystic read, which is Pilgrimage. Well, much about the book has already been said, and very insightfully by Jawhar and of course Rupadi herself. And finally, of course, that lovely conversation that happened between Vayjayanti and Rupa herself. I'm going to begin with Krishna Puli. What my trajectory for the evening is primarily with Pilgrimage is the literary transcendence. I'm going to sing a couple of lines of Krishna Puli and read out the translation of Krishna Puli, and then followed up with not a transcreation but an original poem called Love, which Rupa has written in the book, which actually kind of harbors on the Tagorean ethos, but talks about the transformation and transition of one of the purest emotions that the world goes awry with, love. I'm going to begin with Krishna Puli. Can you give me the book, please? Krishna Kuli ami tare boli, Krishna Kuli ami tare boli, Kalu tare boli gaye lo, Meghla dine dekhechile mathe, Kalu me kalu horen chok, ঘুমটা মাথায় ছিল না তার মোটে, মুক্তবেণী পিঠের পরে লোটে, ঘুমটা মাথায় ছিল না তার মোটে, মুক্তবেণী পিঠের পরে লোটে, কালো তা সে যতই কালো হোক, দেখেছি তার কালো হরিণ চোখ, কৃষ্ণ কলি আমি তারে বলি, ঘন মেঘে আধার হলো দেখে ডাকতে ছিল শ্যামল দুটি গায় শ্যামা মেয়ে ব্যস্ত ব্যাকুল পদে কুটির হতে ত্রস্ত এলো তাই আকাশ পানে হানি যুগল ভুরু শুনিলে বারেক মেঘের গুরু গুরু কালো তা সে যতই কালো হোক দেখেছি তার কালো হরিণ চোখ কৃষ্ণকলি আমি তারে বলি I call her Krishnakuli. The village folk call her dark-skinned. One cloudy morning I saw her in the meadow, the dark doe eyes of the dark-skinned girl. Head uncovered, braided hair hanging free down her back. Dark. However dark-skinned she be, I have seen her dark doe eyes. The day slowly faded under dark clouds. Two dark cows were lowing. With restless footsteps, the dark girl hurried out of her hut. She raised her brows skywards, listened to the rumbling thunder. Dark. However dark-skinned she be, I have seen her dark doe eyes. The east wind gusted in, sent waves dancing to the rice fields. I stood alone on a path between fields, and there was no one else. Did she look at me? Only I know, and the dark girl knows. Dark, however dark-skinned she be, I've seen her dark doe eyes. Like the cold dark clouds gather in the northeastern corner of the May sky, like the soft dark shadows descend on the Tamal Grove in June, like this on a July evening my heart suddenly fills with joy. Dark, however dark-skinned she be, I've seen her dark doe eyes. I call her Krishnakuli. I call her Krishnakuli, whatever name others may call her by. I saw her in the Moinapara meadow, the dark doe eyes of the dark-skinned girl. Krishnakuli ami tarei boli, আর যা বলে বলুক অন্য লোক। দেখেছিলেন ময়নাপাড়ার মাঠে কালো মেয়ের কালো হরিণ চোখ। She didn't raise her sari to cover her head. She didn't have time to be shy. Dark, however dark-skinned she be, I have seen her dark doe eyes. মাথার পরে দেয়নি তুলে বাস, লজ্জা পাবার পাইনি অবকাশ। মাথার পরে দেয়নি তুলে বাস, লজ্জা পাবার পাইনি অবকাশ। কালো, তা সে যতই কালো হোক, দেখেছি তার কালো হরিণ চোখ। Thank you so much. I'm nervous as hell as always, but I can try. Okay, so I'm going to move on to that poem that I was talking about, Love, and I'm going to, as I introduce the poem to you, it's not a translation of Rabindranath's song or poem, but it is a transcendence. And I'm going to sing a couple of lines from the play Ramanjit before I come to the poem. ভালোবাসি ভালোবাসি এই সুরে কাছে দূরে জলে স্থলে বাজায় বাজায় বাঁশি ভালোবাসি ভালোবাসি আকাশে কার বুকের মাঝে ব্যথা বাজে দিগন্তে কার কালো আখি আখির জলে যায় ভাসি ভালোবাসি 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 I loved you as a daughter, no holding back, with admiration, adulation, cutting no slack. In blossoms and saplings, hedges and blooms, in spring, in summer, in swan song swoons. Through books and art, song and dance, through admonitions, firmness in looking askance, I loved you then, I love you now. How could you leave me? Tell me how? I loved as a mother the biggest gift of all, the umbilical ties both strong and tall, the cherub cheeks, the honeyed breath, the twinkling eyes, the curly head, the teenager determined, errant yet sweet, the young lady anybody would want to meet. I loved you then, I love you now. Adults keeping the banner flying and how. I loved you as a stranger, restless and small. I loved you in bars and dim-lit clubs. I loved you under lamplight, moonlight and pubs. I loved you in sea, the night my cover. I loved in parks, on benches, in the shower. I loved you as a relative, family and friend. The ties forever, the memories remained. The friend in me forever yearned for the land of hope, the hug well earned. I love you, oh my friend, through the quagmire, through labyrinthine paths, distance and desire. I loved you then, I love you still. I will love you tomorrow in the morning chill. A lifetime of loving and realizations match. The self was born to give, not snatch. Thank you very much.
I'll take a cue from Sujoy and stand and I love you. I'll take a cue from there. I love you for who you are. I love you for loving with elan. And these days, it takes courage to love with elan. Good evening, everyone. This is a personal journey for me because I met Rupadi about 3 years ago. And life is strange. You meet some lovely people and how and when you become a part of their journey is a mystery. And today I feel so deeply touched that I'm a part of your very, very special moment and I'm personally very, very happy.
Thank you, Robert.
Reading again from the pilgrimage from where Sujoy left. Pilgrimage, the journey. Ardhangini, the first stone cast of halves and fulls and visions merged, of odds and evens and secrets untold, of gender biased and never retold, the girl child. Krishna Koli, the next stone cast of skin tones and stereotypes and prejudice charred, of dreams and ventures and passions untold, of glances exchanged and cast in stone, of tearing asunder to fit the mold. Oh, youth, vows, the third stone cast, of sacred flames and ancient prayers, of pristine beds with union stained, of rhythms and patterns and a girl child born, of monotony and drudgery and dreams distraught. Oh, life. Stigma, the best stone yet. Rebellion, revelation, and rejoice. The tunnel of confusion and the endless night, of birth pangs without the hope of life, of darkness bereft of the kaleidoscope. Oh, the indomitable will. Moksha, the stone uncast, of surrender and freedom and the strength of the eye, of forsaking mystics, saints and seers, of envisioning and embracing the Atma within, of enlightenment. Purangini, who dare cast the final stone of incense and candles that burn within? The body a temple and soul divine, the seizing of needs and freezing of time, of celebrations and wonder that it all lies within. The dignified leap into the freedom of flames. Oh Purangini, it was always you. Out of the bell jar into tumultuous light.
Ladies and gentlemen, to engage in a one-on-one with the woman of the moment, Rupa Chakravarti, whom I also would request to come up on stage, is... Yes?
Thank you, Vayjayanti.
Oh, you're most welcome. The Rupa Chakravarti is Rita Bhimani, whose incredible staying power for 50 years makes her an iconic figure in the profession of public relations. She's grown PR through her several books on the subject, through mentoring scores of students and creating new perspectives through her columns on art, music, food and travel. While celebs from all walks of life have been at the receiving end of her incisive red sofa conversations, this evening's conversation is to celebrate Bidisha and bureaucracy, the amazing author, the extraordinary concept, and the brilliant book. May I request Rita Bhimani and Rupa Chakravarti to carry forward the panel discussion on Bidisha and bureaucracy. Thank you.
What an honor, Rita. What an honor. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So let me start by saying how I'm bowled over by Rupa Chakravarti's writing. That was B-O-W-L-E-D, bowled over, because her writing is bold and beautiful. Maybe it's a cliched term, but there's something more also in it. It is bountiful. I think many of the people who have paid her tribute, which you've seen online, have talked about it. Yes. Particularly our wonderful, wonderful Foreign Secretary, former Foreign Secretary Nirupama Rao. I think what she has said we will never be able to say, but she has said it all about the book. So there's one more B which I'd like to add to this, and that is this whole thing of what the structure of the book is. The Bildungsroman. Big word, but I think she has boldly embraced that particular genre of writing. And what does that writing do? It's basically something where you can imaginatively choose to focus on the psychological and moral growth of its main character. And in this case, it is Bidisha. So it is Rupa Chakravarti on the one hand, and it is her alter ego, Bidisha, whom we will see through this whole book, this whole amazing novel, this Bildungsroman, where you can trace the journey of the protagonist through what was Rupa and how she has again conveyed it through Bidisha. So it really is a kind of no holds barred novel where it is all real and yet it is a novel. So there's more reality in it than anything else. So I think it's something where you see Bidisha from her formative years to adulthood and the immense experiences that become her identity. Bidisha's journey, I would say, in some ways, reflects India's own trajectory on the world stage.
Thank you.
It is possibly the best way to trace the development of the protagonist and naturally, as I said earlier, of Rupa herself, bringing in the deeply personal, the intricacies of bureaucracy. They have mentioned, Chris Srinivasan has mentioned, Ambassador Pawan Verma has mentioned, they've all talked about how you have brought it up. But I think you have brought out things that are not really a tell-all, so to say. There's something more magical, there's something more romantic about how you have traced the journey of Bidisha. You've taken us through the wide and wonderful palette of cities and nations, woven in with the finer nuances of art and music and culture. So I would say really it is not an introverted autobiography. I think that really wouldn't have resonated in any way. That's why you chose Bildungsroman. It's not a travelogue either, nor is it a reveal all, as I was mentioning earlier about the bureaucratic world. To me, it is warm, human, introspective, joyous, and culture created. So Rupa's Bidisha represents the strong, talented wives of the diplomats of the Indian Foreign Service, who have without recompense projected and represented India to a larger world. So they are not the shrinking violets, they are the ones who have done a lot of behind the scenes work to project India in front of the scenes, let us say. So Bidisha's complex negotiation of identity, of belonging and of home is as much about herself as it is about her relationship to family, to nation and to state. So now I come to my question, Rupa, which is a very short question, and I'd like a longer answer from you, which is creating the country's identity while carving out your own identity. How and why did you do it? And how did you have the courage to pen it all for posterity? Because really it is your story.
I think Bidisha was very fortunate in the fact that she was raised to have a very fair percentage of sang-froid, of nonchalance, and the ability to say, this is what I bring to the table. I hit the ground running with Bidisha, and Bidisha wore the inherited saris, the inherited yes, she was born into the genteel poor, but of great heritage. And she was married to Apurvo, whose job was to represent India. So it was a seamless transition for Bidisha. She just continued to be herself. And while she got older and the plait disappeared, the bun came into place, but the flowers carry on. There wasn't ever a moment in Bidisha's life when she tried to be more than she is. It was always what it is, even today.
So let's bring the focus back to your early upbringing and the ancestral influences that shaped your life, or let's say the life of the protagonist, Bidisha. I'd like to ask, is there a kind of doppelganger? Jawhar Sircar will understand all these big words. Between your grandmother and you, between Dadi and Bidisha in your novel. Does Bidisha remain a product of her upbringing? And if so, why?
The word doppelganger, if you go back to Oscar Wilde, translates as duplicate. However, I will say that I am the creator of Bidisha, the protagonist, who is a mirror image, both the concave and the convex. Therefore, while she is the direct product of Dadi's strong, traditional, stoic, Spartan upbringing, the convex side of her allowed her growth, allowed her the ability to imbibe. And if you notice throughout the book, Bidisha was never familiar with the grapes. She enriched herself by learning from the grapes. A first brush when she was pregnant with her first baby. Little Indu was in Madrid and Velasquez, but all Bidisha recalls was Shotukta Panigrahi and Raghunath coming to the house for lunch. Not even the lunch, but the prayer that followed. And Raghunath singing, Jab Janaki Naam Sahaya Kare, Tab Kaun Bigara Kare. Bidisha lived up to that theme. She didn't change.
That is amazing. Actually, the kind of people you met all along the way, they enriched your life, your lives, yours and Sharbajit's. But you also enriched your, let us say, presence over the years, over so many decades of what you also brought to the table in the way you performed, in the way you entertained, in the way you interacted with people. And one of the other questions I had really for you was that in all this, of course, there was a lot of limelight that you enjoyed and you shared, and you reveled in that limelight. But when you came back home and you told your mother about it, you told your grandmother about it, your mother was a little taken aback. And she said, look, this is wonderful. You can enjoy all the fruits of being an ambassador's wife and of being the person you are, or the person that Bidisha is, a very, very positive human being. But don't you think you need an identity of your own? Can't you carve that out for yourself? Did you do that in real life, and didn't Bidisha do that? I think I'd like you to share that.
Bidisha was very truthful. When Bidisha's mother, who I think Sujoy will identify with very well, told it like it is. And when Bidisha came home, and she was the social butterfly, looking pretty, and completely ineffective, vacuous of mind, zero intellect, no pursuit, no goal. Ma didn't mince her words. She told Bidisha, "Baby, I don't like who you are becoming. You must do something whereby you will not just earn your own respect, but Apurbo's respect as well." Well, Bidisha never looked back after that. She worked the entire time, and Bidisha is an extremely honest person and has brought to focus the fact that the Foreign Service spouse, I am the most ordinary amongst the many talented, beautiful Foreign Service wives. But Bidisha is the one who had the presumption to say, I need to augment Apurbo's salary.
Wow, absolutely brilliant.
Let us not pretend that the, as Jawhar said, because he too tells it like it is, the bureaucrat comes with the dignity, the recognition of being known all over, the red passport, the first class flight, et al. But they're not rich. They're extremely middle class people, particularly from India. They represent the third world. Wherever we have lived, the best areas, the best houses, the gold-plated jacuzzis, the swimming pools, the remote-controlled gates, the hilltop villas, was courtesy government of India. There wasn't something that came with Apurbo's salary. We have to be proud of our own introduction and have the ability to say, I am middle class, but I live with dignity. And you have to work towards that. Bidisha never faltered.
Fantastic.
But of course, there's another aspect that you didn't bring in, which is the what did Bidisha do? What did Rupa Chakravarti do? The educator that she became all over the world. I think that was important when your mother talked about creating an identity for yourself. I think that education really came to the fore, and you used it. You used it with aplomb.
Thank you, Rita. I want to say Bidisha was fortunate, and as she says in her book, that at 19 she spoke perfect English. Oh, sorry, at 16 she spoke perfect English, perfect Bengali, perfect Hindi, and very poor French. She grew up in a dilapidated mansion where buckets had to be placed because the roof would leak and nobody had the money to repair that. But the house did have the dusty Chevrolet, the tennis courts. So she grew up cycling, she grew up natural, but she knew she had no recourse but to educate her mind and push it forward. Bidisha marrying Apurbo actually was the catalyst of her becoming the global educator, which is what she thanks Apurbo for. She never stopped working, she works to date.
Yes, she does. We all know that.
And poor Bidisha is still augmenting a very dignified pension that a full Secretary of Government of India receives. But don't forget the fact that we are middle class people and inheritor to our education. We must take that forward. Not just education, because education leads to emancipation.
And that heritage that we have. The heritage. And one last question, if I may bring up. Ambassador Rao, talked about the rainbow of colors that comes in through your wonderful, well-rounded tone. In that rainbow of colors, there are also some shades of grey. And that is what makes it so real, so palpable, so complete. Because there's one part where you talk about Bidisha's mental breakdown. Well, you need not have brought that up at all, because all of it could have been just, culture and the good life and the way you entertain. But the fact that the protagonist could also have a setback. So how did you bring that up? Given that Bidisha's spouse is in the public eye, did she rely on subterfuge or pretense and willpower to ensure the continuance of her husband's career?
Fabulous question. Thank you, Rita. I think Bidisha pondered over that one. But as Vayjayanti put it so beautifully, and Ramanjit read so beautifully, stigma, the best stone cast. Yes, Bidisha was the victim of a severe nervous breakdown. Her parents had to whisk her away and take her back to her nursery, her broken porcelain tea set, her Pooh Bear and her painting. But isn't it high time that Foreign Service wives are allowed to be just mere mortals? Not look perfect, not dress perfect, not be eloquent, but be allowed to be sick, not just in body, but in mind. It is the turning point that the Foreign Service needs to take cognizance of, along with the rest of the world. We are prey to our minds. It has been my best friend and my biggest enemy.
Amazing. And that is where your eloquence has come in. That is where you have spread this wonderful fragrance of jasmine that has been your identity. And I think that is where you have very, very mellifluously shared so much. You've shared it in your book of poems, and you've shared it through Bidisha and bureaucracy. So I would urge all of you to go out and get the book, because it really helped me spellbound. The way you wrote it, the way you expressed it, that is important. And I think that a lot of Foreign Service wives should take a leaf out of that to say that they can also have that progression as well, to be able to lead from the front, to be able to represent themselves and their country to the rest of the world. Thank you, Rupa, for doing what you've done.
Thank you so very much. On that closing note, ladies and gentlemen, before I step off, Bidisha made one mistake. She grew up with the fragrance of the coconut oil, the jasmine in her hair, and sandalwood from Dadi's prayer room. She forsake that for the fake rose, and she paid her price, like we all do.
Before Ramanjit starts reading from Bidisha and bureaucracy, I'm just going to say one thing. I so enjoyed Rita's conversation with, I think we both did, but I wanted to just comment that a lot of things danced before my inward eye.
Wordsworth here.
Yes, I mean, that happened. I could almost see the daffodils in front of my eyes. I mean, like the daffodils, the life. And This evening has particularly been very interesting for me and also very insightful because I've never lived the lives of Apurva and Bidisha. And when Jawhar began this evening talking about the lives in particular, and now the moment of convergence has arrived after your insightful conversation with her, I almost have traveled a life of Bidisha.
Thank you.
And it gives me immense pleasure to be in room with actually maestros. I mean, it's very, that's a very tall word for a small artist like me, but with Sudarshan, Arnab, Anubhav Pal, Jawhar and so many others in the room, and Rita herself, it is, and trust me, after it's been a very bad 2 years, and for a performing artist, Boshali, the Chatterjee, I mean, people like hers will understand this. There's nothing, and the word is exile for a performing artist. So, thank you for bringing us for this convergence. Sorry, I had to butt in to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sujoy, for that note. You echo my thoughts. And he's so right from Jawhar. The note has been personal and from the heart. And that's where we are right now. It's a very personal journey. And I have chosen some very hard-hitting ones. And she's been kind to let me choose them. Thank you for even letting me read them. Thank you.
It is an honor. It is an honor.
It's my
Thank you,
honor
Raman.
entirely. Bidisha and bureaucracy. And I love the cover. So Sunita Paul and the publishing house, many congratulations. And congratulations to the whole audience, curator, everyone here. Chapter 1, Allahabad. Spring, sweet spring. And the engagement was off. Perfidy, calumny, slander, stigma, and worse. Little did I know that this was the beginning of a saga that encompassed new horizons, unknown shores, glittering hilltops, barren deserts, cobblestone pathways, posh promenades, and urban charisma. The young girl from the lineage of the genteel poor had broken free of human bondage, shackles of tradition, to pave the way not just for freedom, but emancipation. A mysterious trajectory had been created by destiny, well before the unforeseen calamity had clouded her doorstep, setting the tone for confluence, inclusion, and internationalism. Bidisha had arrived, clad in innocence, wonder, and bewilderment. And those are the qualities we love about you even now. Chapter 2, Alas, Allahabad. In a cow slip's bell. The year was 1979, the month August. Bidisha had come of age at 19. I was tall, dusky, long-haired and doe-eyed. Many considered me beautiful, but I remained unperturbed. My upbringing ensured an abundance of confidence and a sense of self, but my joie de vivre was God-gifted. On the verge of graduation, I sang, danced, painted, spoke terrible French, but perfect Bengali and English. The apple of Dadi's eye, I was entirely the product of a careful nurture and die-hard values. I prayed, I studied, swam, cycled around the massive grounds and played tennis with Shambhu's grandson on our private courts. The property had run to seed, but still boasted of orchards and overgrown tennis courts. I spent many an afternoon munching guavas and thinking life was perfect. But for the planned interventions of my accomplished mother, I would have ended up the quintessential unsuitable girl. Suddenly, something had gone awry. Very, very awry. The stately mansion was shrouded in gloom. Meal times lacking the effortless banter, awkward silences whenever I chanced upon animated conversations, and oh, the infinite sadness in my parents' eyes. Even Shambhu refused to take me for the joyous rickshaw rides that had been the best part of my weekend during my growing years. Slowly I withdrew within myself, unknowingly conscious, unknowingly cautious, unwittingly careful, wondering where, down the sun-dappled clearings of my carefree life, did the laughter die? What had happened to incur such pain? What ramifications had caused this paradigm shift in atmosphere? And most significantly, was it my fault? It was upon one such sad and endless dusk, while strolling on the rooftop and chewing upon a blade of grass, that confusion got the better of me, and the deluge of tears started. Once they did, they were unstoppable. Dadi found me sitting on the parapet, large eyes, luminous with tears, the front of my kameez tear-drenched. In an hitherto unprecedented gesture, Dadi slapped me hard, a stinging slap on my left cheek that was later to reveal itself in a flaming bruise. Stunned, I looked up to see Dadi's eyes glittering with the flicker of a smouldering fire, reminiscent of chilled winter nights and the fireplace in the drawing room. She held me in a fierce clasp and in strident tones declared, as if speaking to an audience, "You will not settle. Not now, not ever. If I'm not around, I place my strength in you entirely. Tonight, you will have this strength. Use it. Avail of it. But never settle. Promise me." The night was silent. A crescent moon lit up the silver in Dadi's hip-length curls. The fire in her eyes had melted into liquid tears of tenderness. And the fragrance of that embrace, a synthesis of jasmine, sandalwood, and coconut oil. Years later, I would find strength and comfort in that fragrance and remember not to settle. But that night, I hadn't a hint of the complexity of Dadi's statement. However, I realized that I was free of blame, free of stigma, free from human bondage. In a flash, I had inherited the indomitable will of my forefathers, the moral strength to separate wheat from chaff, the ethical discernment that absolution is a personal choice, and above all, to hold my head high. In years to come, I would bequeath the same to my daughters. No mean feat. Dadi had ensured that Bidisha had come of age. That night, dinner returned to normalcy, the ideal banter forced and contrived in parts but prevalent. The food, simple yet plentiful, tasted delicious. Strangely, I noticed that the sorrow upon my parents' face had lifted and been replaced with hope. I would never know of the private meeting that had taken place with Dadi presiding, while I shed hapless tears. I would never know of the decisions taken, the heated exchanges, the anger, angst, and pain, for Dadi had orchestrated it all meticulously. Yes, I remembered the stinging slap, the profound words, the incandescent night, and its eerie chill and thrill, tucked it away close to my heart. That night, I slept the sleep of freedom, the sleep of realization, however incipient, the sleep of the strong. And I was ready to brave life.
Oh, thank you, Ramanjit. Thank you. It's absolutely mesmerizing. Well, we come up to the last bit, the section 3 of this book, which I'm going to, as I say, top it up for a good drink, which you will all be having after this session. I'm going to top it up with a few lines that kind of sum up the evening and the book for me, and this wonderful young lady for me.
Very young.
Very young. Bidisha of the once upon a time returned to a fount of miracles years later, and old lady to express her gratitude. The tree, like her, had aged, but gracefully, carrying its dying branches and withering boughs with contentment and tranquility. She traced her fingers to the tripping brook, the water untouched by disease, untainted by chaos, clear, clean healing. She whispered, "Thank you for granting me the gift of the mind. Without it, I am nothing. I am the sum of my parts. No cliche this, but reality. Through the labyrinthine paths of this charade called life, I remain unchanged. Yes, I have flirted with variety, experimented with range, cavorted with ideas, but my mind always steered me towards the straight and the narrow, cutting my clothes according to my cloth. Like my cigarettes. After a lifetime of choices from Charminar during university days to Goldflake and later Benson and Hedges, I've taken to smoking a hookah of late. As a jasmine, scented smoke twists and twirls, drifting into the impending dusk. The dusk that witnesses another day of introspection and self-realization. The theme remains the same. The hookah, like the flower in her hair, tells her, Bidisha, yours is an examined life. The jasmine is you, and you, the jasmine. However, the jasmine notwithstanding, never forsake yourself. আপনাকেই জানা আমার ফুরাবে না, আপনাকেই জানা আমার ফুরাবে না, এই জানারই সঙ্গে সঙ্গে তোমার চেনা ফুরাবে না, আপনাকেই জানা আমার ফুরাবে না। কত জনম মরণেতে তোমারই ওই চরণেতে, আপনাকে যে দেব তবু বার দেবে না, আপনাকেই জানা আমার ফুরাবে না, এই জানারই সঙ্গে সঙ্গে তোমার চেনা ফুরাবে না। আমারই যে নামতে হবে ঘাটে ঘাটে, আমারই যে নামতে হবে ঘাটে ঘাটে, বারে বারে এই ভুবনের প্রাণের হাটে। ব্যবসা মোর তোমার সাথে চলবে বেড়ে দিনে রাতে, ব্যবসা মোর তোমার সাথে চলবে বেড়ে দিনে রাতে, আপনাকে নিয়ে করব যতই বেচা কেনা, আপনাকেই জানা আমার ফুরাবে না, এই জানারই সঙ্গে সঙ্গে তোমায় চেনা ফুরাবে না, আপনাকেই জানা আমার ফুরাবে না।
Well said, Raman.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much.